Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Capricorny Couple. I'm Cassandra. This is Fabian, as you all know. And today we decided we would like to talk about our love of personality matrices, personality typing systems and tools. And that's what I want to talk about. Are you down with that, Fabian?
Yeah, got a little lower resolution going on here today.
I think that's fine. In fact, I like myself in a lower resolution personally.
Why doesn't the title show up here?
I don't know why you're so concerned about that.
Yeah.
Let's start with Myers-Briggs.
Well,
or do you have something you want to say?
I mean, we did an Enneagram video several months ago that went really well, and people were like, well, when are you going to do part 2? And
we said, we don't know.
We don't know.
We just didn't get around to doing part 2.
Honestly, it's just a lot of information, and I enjoy talking about it. I know people actually, when we have talked about it before, it's been like people like watch and reply, and it's very popular for us to talk about it. So I don't know, we're not going to get too far into systems themselves, but just kind of like what's the point of talking about them, and maybe what are some of the strengths of each, or what we think about them, or whatever.
Yeah. So
you want to start with one that everyone knows, Myers-Briggs.
I don't know if everyone knows Myers-Briggs, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people that we're friends with, at least on Facebook and online, do. Myers-Briggs personality type indicator, also known as the MBTI. That's one of my favorites, and that was really my introduction. I mean, other than astrology, that was like my introduction to personalities for sure. And I have you, and I have one of my best friends, Sharon, to thank for everything that I know about Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, I guess what I'd say here right up front in the beginning is these things have become, what is it, the term, ubiquitous?
Yeah.
You go online and you're getting, people are just sharing personality tests with each other, everything from like an actual Myers-Briggs test, or even to just some BuzzFeed article saying which Star Wars character are you, and these kind of things.
Yes,
right?
Which Harry Potter house are you in?
I want to be, the one thing I want to say or advocate and say right now here is these tools are pretty strong, and that if you buy into it and go with it, and a lot of people do, and if you're not being aware, and you're not trusting yourself, and you're not being conscious of the fact that it's not perfect and there are blind spots, you can do damage to yourself. I've seen people really fool themselves with it.
Yes, me too.
And it didn't really like add to their life. It was just their ego latching on to what they liked out of a description, and then just running with it and using it to justify behavior that is oftentimes the behavior itself that people are trying to get over.
Yeah.
Which brings,
I mean, I made a post about it last week, a status, and it was a frustrated status about mistyping that happens on online tests with specifically the Myers-Briggs type, personality type indicator. And I received some backlash from people a couple of people who are mistyped, and that was what the post was about. So I guess
it just goes. Go ahead.
I just want to say that I don't want people to be typed correctly because it somehow validates me, like, as a person. I want people to be typed correctly so that they can know about themselves in a real, authentic way, not in a pretend way or in like a blind way.
That's the next thing I wanted to come to. People are very casual with these things. Myers-Briggs at this point has become like unusable almost to me, and not even worth talking about, because we all got introduced to it. Big companies have toyed with it and played with it, and frankly been terrible about using it and implementing it.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to be any intention about it. It's like, hey, just figure out what you're like. Haha.
Yeah, or we're going to use your personality type to make sure that you're doing the right job.
To what to what end are we actually care about putting some label on ourselves or orienting with ourselves within a map? And I mean, like, quite literally, yes, orienting ourselves with some kind of map of the psyche, or map of our ego fixation, or map of how we think about things, and or map of like archetypal behaviors, which Myers-Briggs very much points to, and then how that relates to other archetypes. Why do we do this? You know, I go on social media, and every day I'm going to see someone say, hey, I took this test and it says I'm like this. Again, I'm like Han Solo from Star Wars. I don't know, what's a better example these days? The Star Wars one's played out, obviously.
No, people do that. People do all of them. I'm this type of cat. I'm this Harry Potter house. I'm this, you know, they're everywhere. And the thing about the MBTI specifically is that it is a somewhat complicated system, that the letters themselves that you get when you finish the test and you get the 4 letters, that tells you nothing about anything. And even the description itself doesn't necessarily tell you about yourself the way that it would if you actually studied the system. Like it's not as, I don't know, it's not that simple.
It's not. There's nuance to it. There are places where Myers-Briggs absolutely falls flat, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree with that completely.
But it has a great utility. It certainly has a great utility for certain types of people. And I think I will use it and mention it to people when I think there's a blind spot they have, or they don't see maybe how they're coming across to the world, perhaps. And I certainly did this with myself. And what authority am I claiming, by the way? I've read tons of books and been in groups that discuss it for years. Spent time in groups, refining my understanding, discussing it with other people who are from all walks of life. That's all I can claim, you know?
Yeah, I have not read any books about it. I have read lots of things on the internet, and I've studied with people for years, and I'm kind of like an organic learner. I learn from other people. I learn by practicing. I've read the internet, but I haven't read any of the books, really. I'm not good at reading books, full disclosure. I mean, I can read them, like I know how to read, but I don't like to spend time reading them.
Shameful.
I know how to read everybody.
Yes, she knows how to read. She has a bigger vocabulary than
I do have a big vocabulary. It's true.
Yeah.
And you read more than I do.
Yes, I do.
Way more.
Way more.
No one would ever argue.
What's 0 times 40?
Yeah.
Okay.
What were you
40 being, I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, as far as authority goes, I would love to get certified in it, so then I could be like, yeah, I got certified in it, so now you have to listen to what I say because I'm right.
I don't think there's...
Other than that, I don't see any reason to.
Yeah. Also, we have got to a point where I don't care about discussing Myers-Briggs anymore. Part of it because I did for 7-8 years. I wrapped my head around it. I think its weaknesses are too glaring, and I think it's almost impossible to have any honest conversation about it with people without a lot of rapport first.
Yes.
And that's sad that that's happened to it. I actually think there's latent sexism involved with people's attitudes towards the system, because it is 2 women who invented it, basically. I realize it's a derivative from Carl Jung's work, but it's 2 women that put together this pattern thing. And Myers-Briggs is just kind of like the big forefront, in your face, stereotypical personality system that people who hate personality systems rebel against.
Yeah.
And then there's so many derivatives of it out there. People that have repackaged it a million times and said, well, this is the better way to go about it. And it's also like, to me, the Enneagram is so much better and actually simpler, which some people might have a hard time with, of being like, all right, here's a pattern that's going on in your life, and now we can actually like be aware of it and see you grow spontaneously. See you grow authentically. The work the Enneagram points out is to opening up space for you to to just kind of bloom and let your natural essence come out, which I like, instead of Myers-Briggs saying, well, this is how it is and this is how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I like that this is how it is thing in Myers-Briggs. I think temperaments are incredibly useful. I use them all the time as to relate to people in my teaching style, and the different temperaments matters to me a lot of the time when I'm dealing with people more than their specific type, because the temperaments have, their values and they have their ways of being in the world and all these things. And that to me is more useful than knowing somebody's exact type.
Yeah. So now what the existence of these models and these systems imply is that there's patterns.
Yes, there are patterns.
So people are just noticing patterns of behavior primarily, or just noticing patterns in people's speech, for example. Enneagram lays out speech patterns and how they're different between the types.
Yeah.
Patterns and even the way people dress. But those patterns, like dress, for example, are layered on top of people's belief systems, patterns of how people process information, and how that is patterned with certain types of belief systems. And it's great to notice patterns. It's great to notice patterns.
Oh, yeah.
Because so many people, one big criticism of these systems is that they put labels on people, and we're right now in the world, labels are bad. A lot of people feel labels are bad, and I get how labels can be used as weapons and are damaging.
Yes,
for sure. I get it, but I actually think
they're not inherently bad, though. It's a neutral thing.
I actually think the reverse is true. That freedom, and I mean, I say this all the time, and it's in the yamas and niyamas, the niyama of, oh God, now I'm blanking on self-study.
Oh, Svadhyaya?
Svadhyaya from the niyamas. Self-study and noticing patterns is freeing. Knowledge is freedom. When you see the unconscious, bring the unconscious to the light, bring the shadow to light, which personality systems do.
Yeah. There's
freedom in that. Because now there's choice. Now you're not just running on autopilot. Now you can break out of the ruts. And I think ruts is a good way of looking at it. Yeah. And break out of the patterns that these systems are pointing out do exist.
That's exactly how astrology works as well. I mean, they all work like that. Seeing your vices, seeing your virtues, seeing your strengths, seeing your weaknesses. It's not set in stone. We're pliable. We have will. And we can use our will to grow and to expand and to balance ourselves.
So what else do you want to say about it? I'm trying to use this video time to express the spirit with which I know we will move forward in discussing these things. My spirit, when I go into studying Myers-Briggs, studying Enneagram, studying anything else, human design even, there was an Ultimate Life tool, something that we did back in December,
Life tool is cool.
Which I thought was excellent.
I mean, I like the Clifton strengths. I like what we use in transformation. Controller, promoter, analyzer, and supporter. Those are awesome. That's an awesome temperament matrix.
Yeah, temperament.
They're all useful, and I think the key though is that it's a tool. It's not, even though it's a label, it's not something that is it's pliable. It's movable. I mean, sure, like I'm an ENFJ type 2 with a wing 3. At the same time, I'm not the same as every ENFJ. I'm not the same as every type 2. I'm not the same. Like, we all have our own upbringing. We all have different life experiences. We all have these other things, intelligence levels, awareness levels. There's so many other aspects to each human being that one part of ourselves, like the ENFJ or the type 2 or whatever it is, that's only there to help us see ourselves more, but not to stop us from growing or expanding. It's to help us grow and expand.
So I know it's very popular on maybe more so a year or two ago is more popular, but I haven't been on any online dating sites in a while, but I know it had become faddish for a while for people to put a Myers-Briggs type there or an Enneagram type on a dating profile or any kind of like profile.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
I would love it if someone would chime in and tell us if that's still happening.
I think that's dangerous, again, because unless you really feel comfortable with it, because like what I was saying at the beginning of this video, which so many people are mistyped.
They all say type 4 INFJ.
So many people, it's just it's obnoxious, and it's very, I don't know. It's kind of easy to see, and I think people do themselves a disservice with it. What I would rather see is people put down these labels and there be some kind of, what's the point, right? Again, you want to put down a label, ENFP, EIS, blah, blah, blah. The idea is that, oh, well, this is going to help people who resonate with that type come to me, or it's going to help people that know the system figure out how to communicate with me. I'm sure that happens. And
as long as they're not mistyped, yes.
I'm also sure, and I'm worried that the opposite happens. And I would rather the implication be with putting down a label or a type, and I've been having a lot of success with the Enneagram lately. That it implies some kind of growth path instead of people just saying, this is what I am. I want to know what it implies about people and how they're approaching life and how conscious and mindful they are being about getting out of that rut or addressing the negative sides of the patterns.
Well, are you using it to grow as a person and reach your true full potential? Or are you using it, it's like a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Like, this is who I am. This is how I am. I'm just like this. Versus, let me see. Like, do I have to be like this forever? Is this something that I got from a parent? Is this something that I learned somewhere that I picked up? It's not really me. Those are the questions that I would rather have us be asking alongside using the tools rather than just, well, this is me and this is how I am, the end.
So that's the mindset as we go forward discussing these things. That, as always, is growth. And to me...
Yeah, should we put it? Growth.
The irony... Growth, like what?
Growth.
I don't have effects styled up on the computer.
That was my effect. Growth.
Okay, all right. Don't have animations and soundboard here. Yeah, a lot of people really have shown interest when we get into this. And then I would like, at this point, I mean, we're not saying much today other than saying we're going to get into it more deeply.
Yes.
I would love people, if you are watching and you end up watching what we have to say about the Enneagram, because we're going to do that. We're not going to make a Myers-Briggs video. Maybe we will.
I might make a Myers-Briggs video, but probably with Sharon.
Again, yeah. She'll do it with someone else because I'm over it.
Fabian's over it. I still like it, and Sharon still likes it.
It works, and I use it kind of unconsciously all the time. It's very obvious when someone's an SJ. I just know. Okay, it's very obvious when it's a fellow NF. We're both NFs or an NT. And at this point, it's just so inherent. It's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't have to, like, my brain doesn't have to go, this is an NT, so I must communicate and try communicating like this. There was a time when it was like that. I guess it's a lot like learning a second language. There's a time where you're translating everything in your head into a new language, and then you just start using the new language directly, which is another point of learning the systems. You want to get to that point where you're just inherently, you're not overthinking it, because then you can be present with people.
Right.
You're not in your own head trying to analyze someone or yourself. You can actually just be present with people and not make assumptions. It's something very paradoxical about using these tools. You learn the tool very consciously and mindfully, and then you kind of just seeps into you, and you can draw from it when needed more organically.
Yeah.
Which of course comes with practice.
And that is a principal point of the Enneagram itself, being present and being aware so that you can see the opportunities of personal growth as they happen in real time, and then make the choices that are going to be the integrative choice.
Yeah. Now, I particularly have had more success with the Enneagram professionally. And again, as we move forward and make these presentations, and any of you out there are watching now to happen who will watch it, and I'm sure more people will watch the next one because they always have. Growth, like, don't just watch to be entertained, I suppose, but really think about your own growth. And really ask yourself, man, oh, they're saying this thing that could be true for me. Follow up on it, or reach out to us. We do this professionally, but follow up on it yourself. It can be, I know my intention in making the Enneagram video, and there's going to be 2 parts to it, is I see how good it is at creating a spark or cracking a window of light into your soul or your psyche or anything, you know, or both, or I don't mean those terms to be synonymous necessarily. And it can feel like I'm getting an insight into my psyche or into my soul or into my heart. It can feel different, the kind of breakthroughs it brings. It can really set something off quickly. And that's going to be intention to describe it so simply and gracefully, perhaps, that it pokes. And I think we all can be better at poking in ourselves, and probing and figuring out what's going on ourselves, and just even in the world at large, be more curious about why we're acting the way we're acting, why we're in the settings we're in, how did we end up in the situation we're in,
what are the subconscious motivations,
sorting out like
behaviors that come up, the things that happen, the patterns. Again, looking at patterns, like what you said. Excuse me. It's all about patterns.
It's going to be, for me, I am obsessed with leadership and helping people grow. And as leaders, I like clients who do the inner work, and it makes them better at being in relationship with the people they work with. So then they have power with people instead of over people.
Yeah. And I mean, in their personal relationships too. Personal
relationships. I'm saying for myself, I love to see that. And everyone can benefit from being a better person in relationship with other people, whether you are actually trying to flex that in some kind of setting where you are a leader or not.
Well, yeah, we're all, and everything is about relationships.
Yeah. And people who are really learning to get out of their own way, and I mean get their ego out of their own way in moments of their life, are going to set themselves apart. It's kind of the next level, I think, really coming in evolution, are people who are better with emotions, and people who are better at noticing their ego getting in their own way.
Yes.
Because when we do learn how to get our ego out of our way, we open up space for magic, for spontaneity, for inspired action, for things
spontaneous resourcefulness.
For spontaneous resourcefulness, as I love calling it. And then if you really want to get spiritual about it, divine inspiration or alignment with divine will.
Yeah. Great.
So it's not just about figuring out what Star Wars character you're most like, or Harry Potter character.
That's all fun. You can do that.
But so what? Okay, yeah, you are. Well, what does that mean? And how will that get out of your own way in life and get your own ego out of the way? Since everyone seems to be getting hip to the idea, not everyone, but lots of people, that the ego is somehow, like mucking things up.
Well, yeah. I mean, the issue has to do with small egos. I mean, people say that it's like that guy has a huge ego. It's like, no, it's a small ego. A very tiny sense of self has to constantly defend and has to constantly prove and has to constantly do all the things that when we see people doing it, we're like, oh, that guy's ego is like out of whack, man. It's about actually, I think, getting your ego in your way in order to get it out of your way. Like you have to have a strong sense of self and cultivate the ego, and then you can transcend it.
I think that's true. And when people with the biggest egos tend to be the biggest egos, as we kind of mean it commonly, the most insecure.
Yes, that's why it's small. It's actually
That's
small.
right. Well, our president is a perfect example.
Yeah, sure.
Our great and wonderful president.
Exactly. Yeah, and everything is taken as a threat, and so there must be a proving that occurs afterward, or defending that occurs afterward. When really it could just be like, I know myself. I know I'm not like that. I don't have to prove anything to you. That's what you think. Cool.
All right.
Moving on.
Anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's good. I mean, let's just tell everybody we are going to do an Enneagram video next week. So that's our accountability. We're doing an Enneagram video next week. I can tell you more about the day and time probably Thursday night next week, but I'll announce it too. So if you're interested in Enneagram specifically and you want to learn more about the Enneagram, we will do a video about that again. It'll probably be better than what we did last time. And then if you want to have questions, and stuff like that, feel free, check in. In fact, I could probably make a post about it next week so that we could get people's questions and then answer them live. That would be fun. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you. Thanks, babe, for jumping on.
Sure.
Have a great night, everybody. Oh, there we go. Spiritual growth happens in that moment when you are consciously willing to pay the price of freedom.
Enneagram will help you figure out.
What is the price?
Well,
it's usually emotional.
An aspect, at least. A very powerful aspect. And help you. Enneagram helps point to what price may be more precise to your situation, and then how you could even consciously pay it, which is the trick, I guess, the whole trick.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about being present.
All right.
Sure, I guess we can end on that note. Bye.